The SEC availability reports, Ari, they came out on Wednesday night, and Brady Cook, the Missouri quarterback, listed as doubtful for the Alabama game. The line moved 3.5 points on this news. Went from 13 to 16.5. Alabama is the favorite in this game. We don't know if it's no Brady Cook, but we do know he left the Auburn game, got an MRI, came back, put his uniform back on, and led Missouri to a win. But now it sounds like it may be the Drew Pine show against the Crimson Tide.
Well, I mean, also, too, just the way that Mizzou won last week, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence if they don't have him. I do think it's great, though, in college football that whenever some quarterback gets injured, the backup quarterback is just a recognizable name of somebody who started somewhere else that we know, like Drew Pines. I feel like Drew
Pine has started at Notre Dame and Arizona State.
Yeah, and it's just like not some random freshman that if you don't follow recruiting, you don't know who it is. Like it's just like Drew Pines playing. Well, we've seen him start.
It's like when Case Keenum shows up in the NFL as a starter.
Yeah,
it's a Case Keenum game.
Pat Henne is the backup for every NFL team at the same time.
Yes.
But like it is a really fascinating situation because, Andy, you know how important this Alabama game is in terms of just, trying to get back on track or whatever. And like Mizzou, even though they've had a really terrible loss this year, still like technically from a record standpoint isn't out of the picture completely. So
they have one fewer loss than Alabama. So I'd say they're very much in the picture.
Being 6-1 and 1-1. Like, I don't know if, what will be interesting to me is like in the past, getting blown out was like a scarlet letter to the committee. Like it didn't matter if you had a blowout on your resume. I don't know who's the worst blowout that made it in the 14 field. I know there have been a few, but not that many. So
I was gonna say, I don't remember the worst blowout. I do remember Nick Saban being on SportsCenter that one year. It was 2017. Remember Ohio State had lost at Iowa and just gotten drilled at Iowa. And Nick Saban's on SportsCenter, I believe it was Scott Van Pelt, saying, if we lost a game like that, you wouldn't even be talking to me right now. And it was like the ultimate political talking point right there.
Yeah, well, and like I'm very curious, I'm not going to get way ahead of myself here because I don't believe that this will happen, but if there were a world that Mizzou ended 10-2 and suffered another loss where they lost on a last-second field goal, if we would get to the end of the season and have anti-Mizzou discourse in any debate of being the 11-10 or 9.
Ooh,
because
here's
they
a
lost
really
by 100.
good Dear Andy question that we're going to have later in the show that will help address it. Like that situation right there would feed right into this question. So let's put a pin in that one because I do think we can come back to that and talk about that in relation to the playoff, in relation to teams in other leagues and what they're doing right now. So let's talk about Alabama, though, because this is a huge game for Alabama. Obviously, they're a 16.5 point favorite. I've picked Missouri to cover. Obviously, Kalen DeBoer, Jalen Hurts, all the people at Alabama don't care if they cover as long as they win. If they win by 1, it's fine. They got to win. And I think the folks in Alabama, the Alabama fans they're really trying to adjust to this new world. And I wanted to play a little bit of audio for everybody because I think everybody has seen the pulled quote from this statement, but hasn't heard the whole statement. And I think they're two different things, but either way, it's a really interesting discussion of Alabama. So AJ McCarron, the former Alabama quarterback, who obviously led them to 2 national titles in 2011 and 2012, was a guest on the McCready and Siskey show. When Neil McCready covers Ole Miss, Tyler Siskey is a former coach who worked at a lot of different programs, including Alabama. And Neil asks AJ if this is something Alabama fans, the idea of just routinely losing games is something Alabama fans have to get used to. Here's what AJ said.
You were at Alabama during an era when Alabama just kicked everyone's ass and dominated and was the preeminent number one best, no matter what, the best program in the country. Lost a game here and there, but Alabama was the best program in the country. Alabama is not the best team in the country this year. That's become obvious. Is this just a season where there's going to be some L's? Is a blip on the road, or is this hey, welcome to a new reality? Or is there some truth in between the two?
Well, I think for sure the standard that everybody was used to for so long after, Alabama fans went through a bunch of hell leading up to those glorious years. I think it's definitely a different era. I don't think you'll see the same standard from discipline, just things that the team seems to do. And it's a new day and age. Everybody's worried about fucking TikTok and having a reel and, being on highlights for their personal self and personal gain and how much money they can get from NIL. And I mean, we just didn't have that shit back then. So it was a team sport. You came together as a team because you had one common goal, because you knew that's how you were going to make your money, was by winning. Winning attracts people to that program. It attracts scouts. It attracts GMs, ownership, to allow yourself, to have that opportunity to go make yourself a lot of money and change your family tree for a long period of time. And you can just tell it's not the same. It's so, I would think Bama fans should get used to that in a way of, hey, it's not going to be what you knew, from 2008 up till last year, where there was just a certain standard. And that's not a knock on the coaching staff or a knock on anybody. It's just a different era. And it's something I think they're going to have to, buckle up if they're not ready for it. So
what everybody saw was AJ McCarron saying everybody's worried about effing TikTok. And the takeaway was he was talking about everybody at Alabama is worried about effing TikTok. What he means is everybody in the whole country is worried about TikTok, including the players at Alabama, and it creates a different environment, not what you're used to seeing at Alabama under Nick Saban. I don't know about you, Ari. This further feeds into what I wrote about in Dear Andy last week, where I think Nick Saban saw this coming and knew he could not dominate the way he used to. And that is a big reason why he's not coaching right now.
Yeah, but I think that those are two different things, Andy. Like when I listen to this, and I don't know if you think I'm nuts, but I feel like anybody who says they're just concerned about TikTok and social media is just like has an old way of thinking. Like, was the TikTok era only didn't exist just because of Saban's 2008 to 2020? Like that, like this isn't a new thing. I think that the NIL
now NIL, like the ability to monetize it, the ability to create a platform, use that platform to create a brand for yourself and monetize it, only came in 2021 for the college players.
But do we think that Alabama would have lost to Vanderbilt, or that they would have suffered as much as they did against Tennessee had Saban been the coach this year? Like, are we going to make a straight line to TikTok here, or are we going to make a straight line to the fact too that Alabama is going through a pretty rough period where their legendary head coach left and they lost some really good players along the way? Now they added some good players, but like Alabama's issues aren't just, young people and their TikTok. Like that's not what I see.
Because everybody has the same age people.
Yeah, everybody's going through it. Yeah. And by the way, and what you're saying about Saban, I 100%. I think the reason why he retired, and I wrote this the day that for the Athletic, the day that he left the game, that he's a smart man who, and you're the one who always used to say, he told you in his office like 10 years ago that like when he realized he couldn't adapt or he couldn't keep up anymore, that would be the day he walked out the door, and he was real about that.
Yeah, he'd do it before anybody else saw it coming, before anybody else realized it,
and he's a genius because he doesn't have to like have that 3 or 4 year average streak on the end of his resume. Like he went to the playoff and then left. Like he didn't have to go through like finding out. He knew. Like I buy all that. What I don't buy is that people, like teams, are going to have issues winning as a result of the same thing that everybody's dealing with.
What you should be doing is listening to all the hot new songs on the Spotify box through your JLab headphones. JLab is gearing up for college football with some of the top talent in the game, from Travis Hunter to Ohio State's Will Howard and Quinshon Judkins. These football stars embody JLab's core values of innovation, performance, and excellence. Just as JLab pushes the boundaries of audio tech, these athletes redefine their sport with skill and dedication. Whether you're traveling to watch your favorite team or streaming the game on your mobile device, JLab has you covered. Find the blue box at retailers nearest you or visit JLab.com. You get the JLab J-Buds Lux ANC over-the-ear headphones. You can get the Epic Air Sport noise-canceling over-the-ear beautiful workout headphones. JLab.com. Find that blue box.
Like, kids,
somebody's going to win. Like, that's the thing. Somebody always wins. So somebody's going to figure out how to win in this era. It's just a matter of who that person is.
Yeah. So, like I get what he's saying, and I understand too. Like, back in 2011, when you went to Alabama, it was probably purer, right? You went there because you wanted to compete. You wanted to be a part of the best program in America. You wanted to win a national championship, and you wanted to come together with your teammates for a common goal. Like, I love that, like 2011 in that regard is nostalgic. And I also am very keenly aware of the benefits of going to Alabama now as it pertains to your potential income. Like, I get that the time has changed, but I just don't know that I draw a straight line between, like, teams can no longer be excellent for a prolonged period of time because the only thing that their players care about is dancing in front of a camera, or painting their nails, or doing whatever it is that kids do these days. Like
Ryan Williams, you know, the pictures floating around of Ryan Williams with the painted nails. You had Ryan Williams, and I forget who the other receiver was, pretending to shoot jump shots when Jalen Milroe was failing to make the line to gain on a quarterback sneak at Tennessee. So you've got all that. Here's the thing. Like, Ryan Williams is actually the worst example of this, because Ryan Williams came in as a 17-year-old and is the best player on the damn team. Like,
it's like,
so
why are people criticizing
not stopping him from
player
anything
on the team for painting his nails because his sister does it? Like, who cares? Like, I feel like sometimes we're always like trying to like find the reason for why something is happening while ignoring the obvious reason for why it's happening.
It's because Nick Saban's not there.
It's not
Nick
like
Saban's not there because he saw this coming, but it's because Nick Saban's not there.
But last year, when Kalen DeBoer led his team to a national championship, you know, TikTok existed, national championship game. TikTok existed. Players were able to get compensated for their money, like all the same issues of like personalities and stuff. You know, he also had Michael Penix Jr. and 2 NFL receivers on his team, and maybe 3. So like, 4, I meant to say.
Well, yeah, Jeremy Bernard would be the 4th.
Jeremy Bernard's going to be in the NFL soon. So, and he's on his team now. Like, I just, like, I don't know if I don't find myself. Sometimes things are really, really deep, and sometimes you have to spend 35 minutes discussing them in order to get to the bottom of like whatever is causing the thing that you're discussing. But like in this regard, like Alabama can never be good again because TikTok or because it's like, I don't buy that at all. So like, and that's just me. That's just me.
No, it's not just you. You're right about this. And that's what I was thinking about today, because I was going over this quote in my mind. And I'm like, yeah, this is now AJ McCarron's younger than me, but he sounds older than me.
I know.
This is what every preceding generation said. And it's not, I'm painting with a broad brush, because there are people in every generation who don't say the world is going to hell in a handbasket because the younger generation is taking over. There are people in every generation who realize that every generation is just different. And like, I always think it's funny that everybody thinks the younger generation's so soft. There are people who are 17, 18 years old right now who are incredibly hard workers, who are really diligent. Like, there's people like that in every generation, and there's lazy asses in every generation. That's not unique to the generations. Now, are we as hardy as the greatest generation? No, we're not. We're soft compared to them.
The boomers were able to buy a house without being hardworking, right? That's the difference. No, I'm kidding.
Because the greatest generation set them up. So,
yeah. So Yeah, I like the online trend of boomers are evil. Like, I just think it's funny. The thing that I will notice about myself, Andy, is that like I start to say things now that old people used to say that would irritate me. So like I know that's like those
all this new music sucks.
Yeah,
that was
right. Exactly.
That's the first time I realized I was old when I said that.
I said like, yeah, they don't make music that I like anymore. And like the music that we grew up listening to feels like the oldies now. Like I say stuff like that. I don't like the movies they make. You know that. Like it's but like I also know that like I'm saying things because I'm old. Like I'm like aware of that.
Somebody's gonna make some young person is gonna make a great movie that you love.
I hope so.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing about this. Some coach is gonna figure out how to win a lot with these players this age.
But then,
in the NIL era.
I think about my
and his
dad.
name's probably Dan Lanning.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. And like also too, like there was once a trend, or still kind of as a trend of hiring young, moderately attractive offensive minds to coach college and NFL teams. Like that's like not like you don't have to be a 60-year-old man to be good at this. You can be, but
yeah,
it just is funny because like my father, grew up, and when I grew up, I'd listen to like Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath and all the stuff that he like grew up listening to that mortified his father. And then he listened to the rap music that I like, and he's mortified by it. And God knows what my daughter is going to be listening to when she's, 15. But like that's just the way
my
of the world.
son knows every Jeezy song because
that's
what we listen to when we're working out. Like
you don't need to lecture Alabama fans though about how it's never going to be the same again because kids are different. Like okay, or just hire the best coach that you can, and maybe that's still Kalen DeBoer. Not saying it's not.
No,
it's a very tough transition year that would have been tough any generation. Like if Nick Saban left in 2009, it would have been different.